All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. Continuing my way too early college football schedule series. Today we're looking at the ACC, Florida State, Clemson, and Miami. Three completely different teams going in seemingly opposite directions. We're going to be taking a look at those three teams' 2023 scheduling preview, starting with Florida State. And the first thing I did want to note, a lot of these games, the conference games, don't have a date. So you can see it says date to be announced. I would imagine they would be announcing that relatively soon, but we do know who they're facing in conference and whether it's home or away. We just don't know the schedule alignment. So when it says the date is to be announced, that's just, we don't know when that game is going to be. What we do know is Florida State's first two games, starting with LSU on a Sunday, basically the exact same thing as last year. Guys, that Florida State-LSU game, it could be a top 10 matchup. I've seen pretty much everyone put LSU at least at like number 11 or number 12 on their way too early rankings. I put them at number 10. And then, I've seen Florida State as high as number 3 on preseason way too early lists because Jordan Travis is returning, because of all of the other players that could have went to the draft that are returning, and the transfer portal additions for Florida State. They're going to be loaded next year, and that week 1 game, it could be a top 10 matchup. It probably, odds are, that's like a 7v10 matchup. Florida State at number 7, LSU at number 10, neutral site game in Orlando, and that is the Sunday night game there. And then they also have a game the next Saturday against Southern Miss. You would say a freebie. You take a look at that North Alabama game. That game will be on November 18th, so the second to last week of the season. That's not week 3. And then at Florida, the rivalry game, they're going on the road. We really have no clue what Florida's going to be with their quarterback situation. You know, Anthony Richardson leaving and whatnot. We will see. But taking a look at their conference schedule, again, this is not the order of the games. That is to be announced. I would, again, assume relatively soon, you would think, is when it'll be announced. I don't know, maybe in like April. They're at Boston College. You would figure that's a win. At Clemson is going to be huge. It is winnable. Miami at home, you got to win that one. Syracuse at home, you got to win that one. At Wake Forest without Sam Hartman should be relatively simple. Duke at home. Guys, Duke has actually turned their football program around. It's remarkable what Duke has done, but we would favor FSU in that one. They also get Virginia Tech at home, and then they head to Pitt for a road game sometime during their conference schedule. So I would say the conference schedule, it's the ACC. That's a tough game at Clemson. It is winnable. At Wake Forest is more manageable with Sam Hartman transferring out. You get team, they also face Virginia Tech. I said that. And then at Pittsburgh. Guys, I am not buying Pittsburgh next year. To me, it feels like Pittsburgh's going to miss a bowl next year. That's just the vibe I get from them. I don't know. I'm not buying into them. Either way, for Florida State, it's a make or break year. They've been, this is a team coming into the playoff era with a national championship, with Jameis Winston. They make the 2014 playoffs and get throttled, and they haven't been back since. This is it for them. Veteran quarterback. They're getting everyone back. How about Jared Verse, a potential first-round pick returning, and it's a really manageable schedule. LSU in a neutral site game, LSU is going to be good, but this is not like you're facing Alabama. It's not like you're facing, they will probably be favorites in that game, even though LSU is highly regarded. That's how much people like Florida State in 2023. The expectations for Florida State haven't been this high probably since Jameis Winston was there. Or I do think they were ranked number 3 one year when they lost to Alabama in week 1. So maybe that was the last time. But either way, Florida State schedule. Moving on to Clemson's schedule. So either they don't play in week 1 or the game has just not been scheduled yet. because I'm guessing what'll happen is they'll probably have a conference game week 1. I believe they faced Georgia Tech. If you guys remember in that neutral site game, what a boring game that was. The Monday night game, yeah, before the NFL started for Clemson. But either way, I'm guessing they'll face some random ACC team week 1. Week 2, they get Charleston Southern, free win there. Florida Atlantic week 3. And then you can see later on in the season, November 4th, they finish another home and home. It seems like they face Notre Dame every year, but this is a home and home. They face Notre Dame this time at home, trying to get revenge. We remember Notre Dame virtually knocked them out of the playoffs. They went into that game undefeated and got throttled by Notre Dame. That is going to be a hard game for Clemson with Cade Klubnik, even though it is at home. Just looking at Clemson in 2023, the lack of transfer portal additions, the lack of recruiting success the past few years. Yes, they do have a quarterback that they can build around, but I've got some real questions for Clemson. Replacing Miles Murphy, replacing multiple pass rushers, solid linebackers. We'll see if they're able to do it. They should still have a good record. And then they do have that rivalry game with South Carolina on the road, which may or may not be tough. South Carolina's had a really weird offseason. They've lost a bunch of starters to the transfer portal, but they did get Spencer Rattler back. So they got the biggest question mark back, but then it's like they lost everyone else. So South Carolina's kind of a weird team. We'll have to see. And then just looking at their conference schedule, you've got Florida State at home. Going to be a tough game, but they're at home. Georgia Tech at home, you got to win that. Wake Forest without Sam Hartman at home, you got to win that. At Duke could be, we'll see. I mean, I would be a little wary of it, but I don't know what Duke returns. I know they finished the season strong. At NC State without Devin Leary, manageable. At Syracuse, you got to win it. North Carolina at home. Of course, North Carolina does still have Drake May. That could be annoying for Clemson. And then at Miami, Miami's really just an NIL mixed bag. We don't know what we're going to get from them. We don't know if that roster, if Mario Cristobal is going to have it fully formed. We will go to Miami here in a second and take a look at their schedule. But yeah, with Clemson, the non-conference, that's a tough Notre Dame game, and that could be a tough road South Carolina team. That could be a hard non-conference. Obviously, FAU and Charleston Southern are both free wins, but it just depends how good South Carolina is, because the fact that that's a road game, they did lose to South Carolina at home, but now it's a road game. We will see, and they do have a lot of question marks on their defense. Even with the recruiting taking a step back, will they be able to maintain an elite level defense? That's a big question for Clemson football in 2023. And then Miami. So Miami's got a really odd quarterback situation. I believe they return all of their quarterbacks. They had 3 quarterbacks that started. They've got the young, high sought after true freshman Jake Garcia. And they've also got Tyler Van Dyke, who, last I checked, is returning after having a really abysmal 2022 year. I was high on Tyler Van Dyke as possible, top NFL pick, and it just did not work out. And they just don't have receivers. That's the thing with Miami. So, taking a look at their schedule, how about this? The Battle of Miami, week 1. Miami of Florida versus Miami of Ohio. Amazing. But you would hope, if you're Miami, you win that game. Texas A&M, they finish that home and home at home. That's a big opportunity for Miami to prove themselves against an A&M team that is talented, but they are beatable, especially if you're at home in that game, if you are Miami. Bethune-Cookman on a Thursday. That is a Thursday game, so maybe we get a little Thursday night football there. and then so they have a home and home with Temple. What a weird schedule this is. They go to Lincoln Financial Field in front of 20 people to face Temple. Oh my goodness. Temple they have a terrible football program. That should be a fun game. And then their conference schedule, again, we don't know when these games are going to be, but it looks like their first 4 non-conference games are all in a row. So week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and then they get all their conference games after that. At Florida State, that's rough. Georgia Tech at home, it's winnable. Virginia, you got to beat them at home. At North Carolina with Drake May is tough if you're Miami. At Boston College, that's a game you got to win, but this is Miami. Clemson at home, that's an opportunity. You get Louisville at home. I'm high on Louisville next year with Jeff Brom. I think they're going to be good. And then at NC, that is not an easy schedule, I'll be honest. For the ACC, at FSU, at North Carolina, versus Clemson, versus Louisville, at NC State. That is not a fun schedule for the ACC. Let me just tell you that. That is by far, out of these three teams I just looked at, the hardest schedule in conference. And then they do have A&M, who is beatable. And then just a really odd situation with a Thursday night game against an FCS team. And then how about a little road game with Temple? They just can't get enough of the NFL stadiums, right? I mean, they're playing in them, and then they go to Temple, which is the Philadelphia Eagles' home field. So, guys, I just wanted to go over those three teams, Miami, Clemson, and Florida State. Again, I don't want to speculate. I'm sure you could look it up when the actual dates will be released for when the conference games will be in the ACC, but this is kind of just something I'm doing, so I wanted to get this video out, and it's probably it might not come out for a few weeks. We don't know. I did see that, I don't know which conference it was, but one of the group of 5 conferences just came out with their official schedule, so maybe it's coming soon. And maybe I should have waited a few days, but either way, I just wanted to kind of go over their non-conference matchups. I think the biggest non-conference game that I looked at, it's that week 1 neutral site Florida State LSU game. Guys, we all hate neutral site games for sure. It would be great if those teams played a home and home, but either way, it's at Florida State LSU, 2 teams that have huge expectations. It should be good, possibly a top 10 matchup. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.